Hey everybody, this is John from /bash, and today I am bringing you another Entitled Parents Reddit video. If you are new to the channel, then subscribe, and ring the notifications bell so you don't miss out on the fun. In our first story, an entitled mother expects a total stranger to babysit for her, even after being told no. Let's jump right in. So, this is a weird one. Not my story, but a friend who messaged me right after it happened to vent, cause what the actual flip? The cast is Karen, who's the entitled mother, a sweet kid, and Francine, my friend. So Karen moved into the apartment next to Francine's a couple of weeks ago. Karen has struck up short, polite conversations with Francine just 2 times in that period, with the second being yesterday, the day before the whole fiasco unfolded. This morning at about 9 a.m., while Francine was having a nice Saturday breakfast, she gets up at 6 a.m. on weekdays, so this was a weekend lie-in for her. Someone started aggressively banging on her front door. When Francine answered, Karen was standing there with Sweet Kid, who's a 5-year-old girl, who had a little backpack on. Sounding very flustered, Karen said she was sorry to have to ask this with no notice, but could Francine please watch Sweet Kid for a few hours because Karen had somewhere really important to be. Now, something you need to understand about Francine is that she can't stand kids and has no idea how to deal with them. Like, she tenses up and gets super awkward if a kid so much as waves at her in the supermarket. Francine is also disabled. She uses a motorized wheelchair sometimes and a walking cane for short distances or when she's just pottering around her own home. She lives with her girlfriend, who is also her carer. Her chronic illnesses involve fainting spells and a lot of brain fog, so by her own account, she's absolutely not someone who should be left in charge of a child. Karen has seen Francine using both her wheelchair and her cane, and has seen Francine's girlfriend, who was at work when this all happened, helping her in and out of their car. So Francine responded with a firm no, explaining that her medical conditions meant that Sweet Kid would not be safe in her care and that she's not well enough at the moment to have any guests, let alone an unattended kid, in her home anyway. Karen immediately flipped from pleading and simpering to hand-on-hip indignation, at this point accusing Francine of faking her disabilities, because of course if she can walk at all, then she obviously doesn't actually need a wheelchair, right? And threatened to report her to CentralLink Welfare if Francine didn't watch Sweet Kid for her. Never mind the fact that Francine isn't on welfare, lol. Her girlfriend has a high-paying job and Francine works somewhere between part-time and full-time hours from home most weeks. She's a machine and I don't know how she manages it. Newsflash, not all disabled people are unable to work, although of course getting employers to actually hire us is another matter, 'cause ableism. So Francine basically says, I'm not on CentralLink and I don't appreciate being blackmailed. Find another babysitter because I am not it, and closed her door. Karen kept banging on the door for a bit, but eventually left. About 20 minutes later, Francine heard a very faint, timid tapping on her front door. She said if she hadn't been so close to it, she probably wouldn't have heard it. She sighed heavily, having kinda already guessed what was happening. She opened the door and there was Sweet Kid, who had clearly been crying, clutching the shoulder straps of her little backpack. She said very softly, "Mommy said I could stay here today." Now, like I said, Francine cannot stand kids, but even she said that Sweet Kid was an absolute darling throughout this entire fiasco, and the most she ever did was cry because her mother is clearly a monster. Karen had driven off and sent Sweet Kid to Francine's door, clearly thinking that if she left Francine with no alternative, she'd just play along and babysit Sweet Kid for her anyway, especially since Francine had literally no way of contacting Karen. Wrong. Francine escaped abusive parents at a young age, and this stuff made her furious. She got Sweet Kid settled in front of the TV with a drink and some snacks and called the police. Yeah, my neighbor just abandoned her 5-year-old daughter outside of her apartment and the kid showed up at my door asking to come in. When the officers arrived, Francine told them the full story, and while they were appalled, she said they weren't surprised. One said, "You'd be shocked at how not rare this kind of thing is," which is honestly kind of the worst part of all of this. The officers took Sweet Kid with them and were really sweet with her, explaining to her that she wasn't in any trouble and had done the right thing, and that they were there to look after her and find out where her mommy had gone. Francine found out later that they were able to contact Sweet Kid's father, who is currently working on finalizing a divorce from Karen. He was also appalled, but not remotely surprised by what she'd done. Here's hoping he gets full custody of the poor kid after all this. Here's an update. Hey guys, thank you so much for the awards and all of your interest in Francine's story. I messaged Francine asking if she had any updates, and oh boy, that is an emphatic yes. This morning, she had another knock on her door, only it was the dad with Sweet Kid in tow. He went there to apologize for what his ex had done, and so he and Sweet Kid could thank Francine for looking after Sweet Kid and for calling the police. She said he seemed like a good guy who was clearly putting his kid first in all this, which was really reassuring to hear. He told Francine that according to his lawyer, her calling the police and handling everything the way she had would basically be a gift-wrapped custody battle win for him. Because what the flip kind of court would ever grant Karen custody after the crap she'd pulled? His lawyer was over the moon when the dad called him. Francine also asked the dad what the flip had been so important that Karen had abandoned her own daughter over it. You guys ready for this? It's so cliche. It was an appointment at a nail salon. She'd brought Sweet Kid several times previously and just demanded that the staff babysit her and refused to even acknowledge the kid during her me time. When she'd called yesterday morning to book a last-minute appointment, cause Karen's, the staff put their foot down and told her she could no longer bring her kid to her appointments and would be refused service if she did. The dad also said that Karen had shown up so late to the appointment that they'd refuse to see her anyway, again cause Karen's. So she abandoned her daughter cause she wanted her me time getting her nails done. The dad told Francine that me time is an excuse Karen uses to ignore her kid basically anytime she feels like it. Do not talk to me during my me time, etc. The dad also asked Francine if she would be okay to help with this custody battle. He said he understood that her health isn't great and that his lawyer had said a written statement would be fine. He said while it probably wasn't essential, since they had the police report, he wanted to have as much evidence on his side as possible, just to be sure. Of course, Francine agreed. Karen hasn't yet shown up at Francine's door to scream at her, so Francine's thinking maybe dealing with the police put some actual feel of consequences into her. Lol. We shall see. I will of course post further updates if I receive any. In story 2, we have an entitled dad who walks out on his kid during visitation. So this happened when I was recently divorced from my first husband and I only had my older son. My ex didn't want overnight custody because he worked 7 days a week, often 12 to 16 hours per day, but he had open visitations on weekends where as long as he gave me 2 hours notice, he could come out and take our son for 4 to 6 hours. At the time of this story, our son was 4. So generally, my ex would come out on Sunday because that was his quietest day at work and the day he was least likely to get called into work. He was the lead network admin with a major local manufacturer at the time. He'd show up around lunch and take our son into the mall and they would go to Borders and pick out a book or a toy and then go to McDonald's and eat and go in the play area for a bit. The first time this happened was at McDonald's. My ex lives about 60 miles from me and the McDonald's is about 20 miles from my house, 40 miles from his, and close to 80 miles from where he works. He has a crazy long commute. They were in the play area and he got a call that there was an emergency at work and he needed to come in right away. Rather than bringing our son home and then going into work, he called me up and told me he had to go to work immediately and for me to come and pick up our son. I thought he meant he would wait there until I arrived, but no. When I got there, he was long gone and our son was still in the play area all by himself. Anyone could have figured out he was alone and grabbed him or called the cops. I was absolutely furious at my ex, but hey, that's why he's my ex, right? So after this incident happened, I took him back to family court and petitioned for him to have supervised visitation only. It was granted, but lucky me, the court decided that since my ex and I were still on good terms, I had to be the supervisor. This isn't uncommon in my state. And I didn't want to be one of those bitchy ex-wives that won't let the father see the kids, so I agreed to it for my son's sake. He would pick both of us up and take us to Borders and out to eat, just like he'd done when it was just him and our son. And then the same thing happened again. We were all at Borders and my ex was wandering through the store while my son and I were in the kids section. We had arranged a time to meet and leave, and I went looking for him and couldn't find him anywhere. I thought he was probably in the restroom or something. So I called his cell phone only to find out he'd been called into work again and left without even telling us he was leaving. I had to call my parents 40 miles away to come and get us and take us home. I thought my dad was going to kill my ex when he found out what he'd done. Hell, I wanted to myself. I went off on my ex big time and told him I wasn't going to put up with it anymore, and if he wanted to see our son, he'd just have to come to our house and stay there with him for a few hours every weekend. The court backed me up on this one, and the judge reamed him out big time over taking off on us again. Especially when it came out in court that half the time my ex had my son, he just dumped him with my ex-in-laws and gone to work, so he wasn't even the one with him during visitation. That was pretty much the end of visitation. I'm since remarried, I have a younger son with my second husband, and my ex hasn't shown his face since 2010, of his own choice. In story 3, an entitled neighbor expects me to shovel her driveway. Hello, I've been watching Reddit videos of this sub for a while and today got my own entitled mom story. First of all, I'm Dutch, so please excuse me for any English mistakes. So I'm a 15-year-old male and have been dating my 15-year-old female girlfriend for about a year now. While we stay at each other's house, I am more at her parents' house than she is at my parents' house. I'm always awake super early and usually just lay there doing nothing. This weekend it had suddenly been snowing here, so this morning I felt like being nice. Her parents are always the nicest people, and since I am much more at their house, I wanted to clear the driveway of snow. Every Saturday I work at 7, so I wake up at 6. So now I have gotten pretty good at getting out of bed without waking anybody else up. So I got out of bed and cleared the driveway of snow so her parents could leave for work, as it really wasn't possible to leave without it. They both have to work at around 8:30, about a 10-minute drive, but they usually leave a little earlier, especially with the snow, and my online school starts at 8:25. I was just finished with the driveway, around 8:15, and there came their neighbor. This is about how it went, also translated from Dutch to English. Hey, could you do my driveway too? I'm sorry, my online class starts soon, so I really don't have time for it. You had time for their driveway, so you can do mine too. I had the time for theirs, but I don't have any more time. Come on, it'll only take you 20 minutes max. I have 5 more minutes, I really can't. Then why didn't you start earlier? Because I was just planning this driveway, not yours. Well, you should have planned to do mine, and you should have gotten up earlier. I'm sorry, but you could have gotten up earlier yourself. Have some respect for your elders. Okay, Dutch version of Karen. I have class now, I have to go. I started to walk inside. What? You haven't cleared my driveway yet. And I closed the door. This is John from /bash. Please hit the like button to help with the almighty YouTube algorithm and subscribe if you are new. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.